Hello everyone, my name is Ziamaro and welcome to Battlerite Sage. Today we're continuing our Battlerite Basics tutorials, and today I'm teaching you a little bit about positioning. Let's start with the absolute basics. There are three types of characters in Battlerite: melee, ranged and support. As with most games, melee make up the front line and the supports and ranged stand at the back. This is a huge generalization in Battlerite because some melee characters like Croak don't want to be standing at the front soaking damage, and there are ranged and support characters like Ivor and Sirius who have close range abilities. If you were to distill positioning into one thing, it would be controlling the middle area of the arena. The reason you want the middle area is because of the middle orb and smaller orbs around the outside. If your team gets the last hit on the middle orb, you get 25 energy each and 20 health. The smaller health orbs give you 12 HP each, and the energy orbs give you 8 energy. It's worth noting as well that the health you gain from the orbs, half of it is recovery HP. So if you played the game for a bit, what you'll notice is after you take a certain amount of damage, you can only be healed up to a certain amount, and that's 40 HP. So if you have 250 HP and you get taken down to 180, you can only be healed up to a maximum of 220. By taking these orbs, your maximum recovery health is increased. So the orbs are even more useful than they might seem at first. The middle area also gives you a strategic advantage because you have the fastest access to all the areas of the map. So at the start of the round, you want to make sure that your team gets into the middle area. A lot of teams play overly defensive and stand in the choke points for too long. So at the start of the round, you want to get into the middle area and get a good initiation of some kind. If you have a Thorn or a Rukan, this could be pulling the enemy towards you. Or if you have a Rook, Shifu, Bako, whatever, this could be a dive onto the enemy. Ranged champions should be doing some good poke in this phase. So things like Jade's Snipe or Destiny's Charge Bolt are really great for poking at the enemy team. After this initial phase is usually where positioning goes out of the door for inexperienced players. Let's say you get a good start and the enemy falls back out of the middle and hides behind a wall. You see a lot of inexperienced players chasing them down. If the enemy keeps falling back and they end up in their spawn, then that's fine, you have them cornered. But it's usually good to never presume that your enemy is going to be bad. If you push behind the wall against a good team, one of two things can happen. Either your team gets split off and the person who pushes behind the wall takes a huge amount of damage. The other thing that can happen is your whole team pushes out of the middle and the enemy loops around, goes through another choke, and they end up in the middle, putting you in a bad position. Instead, if the enemy falls back, you should stay in the middle and continue zoning them. Keep poking damage into the choke and deny them orbs. If they don't have an answer to this, then you'll eventually win the war of attrition. A lot of the same stuff applies in reverse when you get pushed out of the middle. Sometimes an enemy play or a good initiation can force you to go behind the wall to either heal up or avoid damage for a few seconds. This is okay, but what you do next is more important. In solo queue, what can happen is one or two of the enemy team can get overly aggressive and start chasing your team. If it's only one person, then you should just put back as much damage into that person as possible. Either they'll back off or you'll do so much damage that you'll put yourself back in a favourable position. If the whole team chases down, what a lot of players in solo queue do is keep falling back. You really don't want to do this because you will end up back in your spawn, and that's somewhere you really don't want to be. Instead, you should move around the arena and enter from a different choke point. Quite often when I get pushed out of the middle, I like to mount up and then come back through a different choke point. This way you can catch them off guard by taking a different angle that they weren't expecting. So that roughly covers getting into the middle and staying in the middle. But what if both teams stay in the middle? Quite often you'll notice that each team holds a particular area. Just to give you an example, let's say your healer's at the bottom left of the arena and their healer's at the top right. Let's just say you're playing Jade, so you're standing fairly close to your healer. You're just kind of poking away, doing a bit of damage, and then suddenly the enemy Raigon jumps onto you. A lot of inexperienced players will back out of the arena. This can be okay if you can mount up and re-enter from another choke point, but if the Raigon still has a gap closer, then you'll be stuck behind the wall and you'll have no support. What's usually better is to look for an empty space that's still within the arena. In this particular situation, you could have jumped over to the bottom right. This way you still have the support of your team, but you've created just as much space as you would have if you jumped out of the middle area. So always have a think about what your options are. If you've played other games like Overwatch or League of Legends, then falling back can be a good strategic option because you have your turrets to look after you, or in Overwatch you can go back into the spawn where you're invulnerable. But in Battlerite there's absolutely no strategic advantage to falling back to spawn. In fact, it's a really bad place to be. So if you do have to fall out of the arena, always have a plan of how you're going to get back into the middle. Try not to think of the map as, hey, this is our side and this is their side. After the gates open, it doesn't really matter whose side is whose. If there's an open space on their side of the map, then that may be the safest place to go. More than anything, being in a place where your team can help you is the safest place to be. And having control over the middle gives your team a strategic advantage. That just about does it for this tutorial. I'll be doing some more advanced tutorials in the future, including guides to dealing with each champion. And I'll also do some breakdowns of entire rounds so we can really get into the nitty-gritty of what happens in a real game. So stay tuned for that. I hope you found this guide useful. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to give you an answer. I'm going to be doing plenty more content like this, so feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching and see you next time.